The Rays' trip to Miami was a success, taking 2 of 3 from the Marlins to even their record at 3-3 on the young season. Tonight, it's back to the American League East as the Rays head to Toronto, facing the big bats of the Blue Jays. The Rays road trip has carried them north of the border as we greet you from Ontario, Canada, from Toronto, where the Rays and the Toronto Blue Jays will square off. And for the Blue Jays, this is their home opener. We're going to have a full house at Rogers Center for Game 1 of this 4-game series. Hi again, everyone. Welcome to an evening of Rays baseball with Brian Anderson. I'm Dwayne Stats. Thanks so much for joining us tonight as the Rays come in here off a series victory over the Miami Marlins. And let's just take a moment and talk about that, because for the last 4 years plus, the Rays have had the best road record in baseball. So they go to the road, win a series. You hope that that's the momentum that can carry them in here to Toronto.
And I think that's what Kevin Cash is hoping, and Kevin Cash is believing, because he talks about that game on Friday night, Miami. The Rays dropped that game. They were down 8-1, came back, ended up losing late, but he said that is the moment that he felt like the switch got flipped for the Rays. They come back, they win a great game on Saturday behind Chris Archer, and then come out and win the series in yesterday's ball game, and did it really in dominating fashion. The final score doesn't do it justice how well they played yesterday compared to the Miami Marlins, but they win those 2 games, and they're going to come up here, and there's going to be a lot of pomp and circumstance tonight.
Yeah, you're right about that. The other thing that carries the Rays, as we all know, is excellent pitching, and they got a great pitching job from Jake Odorizzi in his first outing at home against the Baltimore Orioles. He was at times last year very good. The Rays, when they made that deal, thought that that was in there. Well, that start he made at home against Baltimore, I think it all came together, and his presence on the mound was a great way to communicate that from the first pitch.
That was one of the things that really impressed me. Jake Odorizzi going up against a very stout Baltimore Oriole lineup, and he was in complete command. The way that he went out and attacked this lineup, you know, he threw 6 2/3 innings, just 94 pitches, so he was very efficient. And what that tells you is he was in attack mode, and he really came out, took the game right to the Orioles, put them on the defensive, and was able to finish them off and have that great line. Didn't walk anybody, 7 strikeouts. That was what was impressive. Bigger, stronger, and more aggressive. Then you start to look at his pitch selection, and you see that, you know, he likes that elevated fastball that works very well with him to go along with that split change, and 71 of the 94 were a part of that combo, and that's another reason that, you know, he had success against that lineup. I'm sure he's going to try to do the same thing tonight with a similar breakout. But right now, let's hear what Jake has to say about his first start pitch selection.
Definitely. The more velocity you have, the more they have to be ready for it. So that, I think my changeup had a little more velocity to it as well. And like I said, it was really good the other day, you know, better than it's been in the past, and especially this early in the year. So I think they kind of go hand in hand with, you have to worry about this more, and this is going to make, you know, my other pitches better as well.
Well, what made him so effective is that the hitters had to cover all of the strike zone, in and out, up and down. And the guy pitching tonight for the Toronto Blue Jays, 40 years old, he'll do that, but in a different way. R.A. Dickey with his knuckleball.
Yeah, it's not on purpose. You're not really sure where R.A. Dickey, you know, you talk about pitch selection, you know what you're going to see for the most part from R.A. Dickey, and that is the knuckleball. No secrets. You know, the key, we talk about this all the time when facing a knuckleballer, is you want to see that ball elevated, see it high, let it fly, see it low, let it go. The other thing is, you've got to be, especially if you're a right-handed hitter, if R.A. Dickey falls behind in the count, he will come with the fastball about 35% of the time. So you want to see the knuckleball elevated. If you are fortunate to get ahead against him as a hitter, then maybe you get that fastball. You got to be ready for that.
And you think about knuckleball pitchers, and you don't think about guys who can control that pitch, but that's part of his game. He thinks there are things that he can do that will bring down walks, because he is prone to the home run, and if he can keep men off base, it's better for him. We'll have more about that when we get into the body of our game tonight, but he can be tough. The other very frightening thing about this Toronto ball club offense. And do they have some big bats? We'll look at those in a moment. Your center tonight for the Toronto Blue Jays as we watch part of the ceremonies. The Rays already lined up along the first base side. The Toronto Blue Jays yet to be introduced. And when they are introduced, you're going to see some powerful offensive hitters up and down their lineup. And they've added a couple of new faces, two faces that they think not only will give them added offense, but will help in the clubhouse as well.
And you're talking about two important positions, too. You're talking about Russell Martin behind the plate, coming over from the Pittsburgh Pirates as a free agent, and Josh Donaldson down at the hot corner, coming over in a trade that sent Brett Lawrie west. Josh Donaldson comes east. You see right there, they put over $80 million into Russell Martin, a guy that does a great job behind the plate, handling a staff, calling a game, and at the plate last year, hit .290 on base of over .400. Josh Donaldson, productive. Guy doesn't miss a lot of time either. The last two seasons, 158 games played, and he's going to hit you in the mid-20s in home runs and drive in just about 100. So two big guys that you're going to plug into this already lethal lineup.
Yeah, not only is he a fan favorite for all the reasons that you mentioned, but he's a guy who was born in Ontario. He went to high school over in Montreal, so he's a Canadian, and they are proud of him, and he will be a big part of the success story if the Blue Jays do what they hope they can do after being disappointed the last couple of years when they had teams they thought would be right in the middle of the race. And for a time last year, they were. They spent a couple months in first place, and they did it primarily because of the big bats, guys by the name of Bautista and Encarnacion. Interestingly enough, Encarnacion and his home run output is right there behind Miguel Cabrera among the elite and active power hitters in the American League.
And yeah, so you think about Martin, Donaldson adding to this group. Bautista and Encarnacion still here and still doing their thing. Jose Bautista coming into this season, the last 5 years, 5 seasons, 187 home runs. You see the damage that he did last year. That's about what you can expect year in and year out from a healthy Jose Bautista. 35 home runs, 103 runs driven in. He punishes mistakes. Both of these guys punish mistakes out over the plate, hands high, and boy, does he let it fly. And this guy, well, he does the same thing. When you're talking about, Dwayne, the home runs since the beginning of 2012, 114 now. He's already got 2 here in the first week of this season. And again, right there in the mid-30s, 34 home runs last year, 98 runs driven in. The other thing that's impressive about Edwin Encarnacion is for being such a power hitter, he doesn't strike out a lot. Just 82 strikeouts last season. So he can put up power numbers, but yet he's still a good contact guy.
And there's a look into the Blue Jays dugout with Bautista right in the middle of that conversation, and he is right in the middle of their lineup. He'll be hitting third tonight here in the home opener for Toronto. The Rays offensively getting some outstanding extra base production from Kevin Kiermaier. Todd Callis sits down with Kevin when we come back. Introductions being made here of the home club, the Toronto Blue Jays, leading up to the first pitch in the home opener for Toronto. Rays and the Blue Jays meeting for the first time this year. Well, the Rays coming into this series fresh off a series win in Miami. Kevin Kiermaier was a big part of that. He had a couple of extra base hits yesterday, was on base 3 times, and Todd Callis has caught up with the speedy Kevin Kiermaier.
Kevin, so far as the season has gotten underway here, it seems like the strokes are pretty good at the plate. Are you feeling good with your ABs?
Yeah, I feel good. Just trying to stay simple right now, and just really not trying to do too much up there. It's helped me a lot, and just trying to see the ball, hit the ball, and keep it very simple. And as far as my pregame routine goes, I just been hitting off the tee, hitting BP, and taking that into the game. So I like staying free and easy like that, and that's what helps me get locked in. We
saw you yesterday take a couple of chances, taking singles into doubles. That's part of your game. You love that, right?
Yeah, just putting the pressure on the defense any way I can. And once I get around first base and where I see how much distance is between the ball and the outfielder, then I make a decision right then and there. And it depends on some guys with their arm strength and whatnot. But I liked my chances yesterday and ended up working out. So it's pretty fun.
You've been in the stadium before. What's your pregame prep today getting ready? Do you look at the turf, see what's going on out there?
It's my first time being out here and seeing this new turf, but I'm not going to change anything up. Well, I'll get a read in BP how the ball's, you're going to get that true bounce off the turf, but, in years past it's been very bouncy, so we'll see how this new stuff is. But I'll just go hit off the tee here in a little bit and then get ready in BP.
Always a little challenge getting ready for a knuckleballer. You faced R.A. Dickey 8 times already. What's your approach to him?
Oh, it's kind of hard to have one against him because that ball can do so many different things. So you just try to see it up because it has to come down sooner or later. And if it starts down, it's going to stay down. And with that, you kind of got to see it up. And I really don't put too much thought into him. And honestly, it's pretty much just all luck with a guy like him, especially if he's really on that day.
Final question. The at-bats seem to have been really solid 1 through 9 with this team. Do you feel like since spring training, as you've rolled into the first week, you guys have put together a nice group of at-bats as a team?
Yeah, I think we're all getting comfortable. And, that first series, I think we kind of had those opening series jitters and a little nervous. And now we're getting settled into our everyday routine. And guys been swinging it great. So, and it's really fun coming to the park every day right now. And we're all getting along great. So little things like that go a long way for us. And we're just having fun playing right now.
Thank you, Kate.
No problem. All right.
Opening day in Toronto, moments away. Locked on Sports is brought to you by Toyota. Let's go places. And by Checkers. Get Checkers authentic Philly cheesesteak or try the new meatball sub. Pick yours, 2 for $5. Rays and the Blue Jays about to get underway at Rogers Center in Toronto. The Toronto home opener. And we'll have the first pitch coming up when we return. Crowd of over 50,000 here. Rogers Center will hold 50,516, and it was announced a sellout. So the Rays and the Blue Jays will play before a full house to get the home schedule open for this Toronto ball club. We'll take a look at the starting lineup presented by your Southern Ford dealers. The Rays will have David DeJesus to lead it off. Steven Souza Jr. will hit in the second spot. See him right there in the Rays dugout. And Jubal Cabrera, coming off a good series against the Marlins, hits third. He's at short. Hitting cleanup, Evan Longoria in left field, following Evan in the 5th spot. Desmond Jennings. Alan Dykstra back in the lineup at first, filling in for the injured James Loney. Rene Rivera coming off a 3-hit game. He'll do the catching. He'll hit 7th. Kevin Kiermaier 8th in center field. Tim Beckham will get a start at second base. His second start of the early season, coming off a couple of outstanding at-bats in the Miami series. So Beckham gets a start. See David DeJesus there. And boy, did he provide a lift for the Rays down in Miami. DeJesus connecting in the 5th inning off Henderson Alvarez in yesterday's game.
Interesting story about that. That was one of those things that Derek Shelton, the hitting coach, tipped David DeJesus off and said, listen, if Henderson Alvarez, he's the type of guy, if he's able to get up on you 0-2, he'll throw you that front door sinker. David DeJesus sat on it and gave him a 3-run homer.
Blue Jays and R.A. Dickey taking the field. Dickey in his prior start and no decision against the New York Yankees. Gave up just 1 run on 4 hits. In 6 1/3, striking out 4 and walking 3. Coming off last year when he was 14-13 in 34 starts.
His last 2 years, he's been the model of consistency as far as production. 14-13 both years, 215 plus innings both years in 34 starts. He's within 3, 71 walks 1 year, 74 the other. Same thing with strikeouts. You know what you're going to get out of him if you're the Toronto Blue Jays. The Rays hitters, not really sure what they're going to. They know what they're going to see. They don't know how that knuckleball is going to be dancing tonight. And you heard Kevin Kiermaier talk about it in his sit down with Todd. You want to see the knuckleball up because you know if it's up, it'll start to drop into the zone at some point. If it starts off low, it's going to end up low. So see it elevated and then just take a rip and hope for the best. Let's take a quick look at the defense as it lines up tonight for the Toronto Blue Jays. In the outfield left to right, we have Kevin Pillar, Dalton Pompey, and Jose Bautista. Across the infield, third to first, Josh Donaldson, Jose Reyes, Devin Travis, and Justin Smoke. Russell Martin will be behind the plate.
Braves will play 4 games here, 4 night games in Toronto before they're home this coming Friday night with the New York Yankees in. New York in for 3 night games Friday and Saturday, day game on Sunday. Boston and Toronto will also be in on the lengthy homestand for the Rays. So hope you're making plans to see the Rays on their next homestand at Tropicana Field. Well, here we go. David DeJesus. See those hot numbers. And boy, his bat has certainly helped with the injuries the Rays have had early this year. Here's the first pitch from Dickey, and it comes in too high. That pitch presented by Pinch a Penny. So we are underway. There's Chris Guccione, veteran of 8 years out of Colorado, calling the balls and strikes. And a strike.
Well, with all these injuries, if you put up good at-bats like David DeJesus and Tim Beckham, you're going to find yourself in this lineup, and that's what we see, a bookend.
Now back. 1-2. Well, DeJesus only 1 of 17 in his career against Dickey's knuckleball. But boy, it's hard to make any sense of individual matchups against a knuckleball pitcher. 2-2. Evan Cash, who spent a couple years as an advanced scout for the Blue Jays before joining the Indians coaching staff and now managing against the Blue Jays. Pompey, the young center fielder. 1 gone.
And the one thing that Kevin Cash did say about facing the knuckleballer R.A. Dickey is he advised his team, you're going to be a lot better off if you swing earlier in the count. And so look for that to maybe be one of the approaches of this Rays offense. You want to see it elevated, and his idea was swing at it early in the count. No reason to hang around and let him start dancing it up there with 2 strikes. That's where you lead to the strikeout numbers.
Steven Souza Jr. back in the Rays lineup. He's after that first pitch and fouls it out of play.
A very rare first pitch fastball there by R.A. Dickey. And that's what you'll see, 80, 82 miles an hour. He likes it when he's behind in the count. Rare first pitch.
Cut and a miss. And Dickey's a guy we mentioned a little bit in the pregame. He is a guy who thinks he can control the knuckleball to a degree. And you almost think it doesn't make any sense to talk about control out of a knuckleball pitcher. But he thinks if he is softer with the knuckleball, he has a better chance of throwing it roughly where he wants. And he gets a called third strike on Souza Jr.
Well, he would know better than anybody. And not too many people dabble in the knuckleball. R.A. Dickey, though, he will change speeds with it. You're absolutely right. And here's a soft one that ends up catching the outside corner.
So 2 outs here in the Rays first. Now as Drupal Cabrera. He had a hot series in Miami. And the strike. Our GMC big matchup. Dickey and Cabrera. As Drupal 4 out of 9 with 2 home runs and 2 doubles. And a walk for good measure in that matchup.
And that's how he will toy with you. We talked the fastball low 80s. Those last 2 knuckleballs, the harder variety in the upper 70s. And he'll go lower than that. That's what makes him so difficult to face.
Two and two. Good cut and a miss. Rays up and down. 1, 2, 3. Bottom of the first coming up. No score. The Blue Jays lineup presented by your Southern Ford dealers. Jose Reyes leading off. Dalton Pompey and Jose Bautista the first 3. Edwin Encarnacion, Josh Donaldson, and Justin Smoke down the middle, followed by Russell Martin, Kevin Pillar, and Devon Travis, the second baseman, bats ninth.
Taking the mound tonight for the Rays, right-hander Jake Odorizzi, looking to build off of that stellar start he had his first time out against the Orioles. Those are the numbers.
First pitch. Fastball missed a little bit wide. Lifted into left for Desmond Jennings. One away.
Let's have a peek here at the Tampa Bay Ray defense as it lines up behind Jake Odorizzi. In the outfield, we've got Desmond Jennings, Kevin Kiermaier, and Steve Souza Jr. Across the infield, third to first, Evan Longoria, Asdrubal Cabrera, Tim Beckham, and Alan Dykstra. Rene Rivera will be behind the plate.
Dalton Pompey got a bunt and fouls it back. The Blue Jays have some youngsters on this team. Pitchers and players, everyday players, Pompey being in center field, that are very young, and they have made a rapid ascent into the major leagues.
Well, they're very athletic. You start to think about Travis at second base and Pompey out in center field, and it's almost with, you know, the veteran presence, Donaldson, Martin, Encarnacion, and Jose Bautista. You can kind of, you know, let these guys just come in quietly and be protected in this lineup. Let them do their thing.
1-2. Pompey got into 17 games with the Blue Jays last year, but played at Dunedin for the better part of the year in the Florida State League a year ago. Then AA in New Hampshire, and then AAA at Buffalo. With 3 quick stops in one minor league season. Broken bat, and the ball is just foul. That was John Gibbons going with some youth in the mix in his 8th season as the Blue Jays manager. Second time around for Gibbons here. This time starting his 3rd season in the 2nd stint. And 2 the count on Pompey. Little tap. Cabrera's throw to first in time. Pompey's out of there.
Well, that goes to show you the importance of your defensive setup, you know, where you're positioning guys, because that chopper gets over the head of Jake Odorizzi. As Asdrubal Cabrera is playing normal shortstop, Pompey beats that out. But they had him played, you know, swung over up the middle, so he's able to charge in, cut down the distance, and make the play.
And that could especially be true on this turf. We'll get to that a little later, as Jose Bautista stands in against the shift and takes the first pitch for a strike. Pitch away. Odorizzi in his first start of the year had a great mix. He relied upon the split. I think he threw 30 splits in that game. That and the fastball combo. He's ahead in the count right now, and a nice pitch there. But he also has the slider and the curveball.
And a couple of cutters that we've seen here in this at bat to Jose Bautista, something that he worked on in spring training. And you're right, we talk a lot about his elevated fastball and that split change, and for good reason. 71 of the 94 pitches in his first start. But that slider, a lot of times that's a cutter. It's a small, short little slider, more like a cutter. And then, of course, he's got the big curveball, which is how he started Jose Bautista off in this AB.
He goes up with a fastball. Taken for ball 3, full count.
In fact, when you see his fastball, you'll see it 92, 93. The cutter is going to be 88, 89.
Way up that time.
Man, that was a cut fastball there by Odorizzi that he just got around. Tried to overthrow that pitch.
And here's the deal. If you're going to miss up to him, Nothing wrong with missing way up.
Way up. You see the fingers on the side of that baseball, and he just got around it and just got underneath it and pushed that ball up. Just tried to make that pitch do a little bit too much. And it's a new pitch for Jake. You know, last year was the split change that he brought into the season. This year, it's that cutter. He's still working on the mechanics of that pitch.
Edwin Encarnacion. Pitch is up to him. And a visit to the mound by Rene Rivera. Encarnacion, big time power. Encarnacion hit 34 home runs last year and lost over a month of the season when he had the quad strain. One and one.
Encarnacion, those 34 home runs, drove in 98. All the more impressive for the reason that you just gave, 128 games played.
And you know, it was during that stretch when he was healthy and going great guns that they were in first, in and out of first, in first for a couple of months. And when he came back, by the time he came back, they were 7 or 8 games out. Snap throw to first, got a chance. Oh, he got back in there, and that was close. Well, we saw Rivera pick off Adam Jones in the first game of the year, and base runners will not be able to take many liberties with him, and boy, that was close.
And you know what? You can almost take a look at that. That was a nice job by Alan Dykstra on the blind tag going back there, and he may have got him. In fact, he did. And I think if they challenge this, the Rays got a great chance right here. That first angle that we showed, you could see that glove of Dykstra onto the wrist of Bautista before the hand got to the bag.
Yeah, Rivera thought he had him. Kevin Cash came out just a step or two in front of the dugout and then got word that maybe it wasn't going to be conclusive. So he decided not to throw the towel, as it were.
Well, and you may have gotten it, but here's the deal. It's a non-scoring play in the first inning of a scoreless game. You don't want to lose your challenge unless it's absolute for sure. And I think they would have gotten it, but you can understand why he didn't challenge that.
Hard to tell sometimes what's clear and convincing. So the Rays let that one go. That's a strike. Now the count is full. Well, you know what that might do, though? Of course, the Blue Jays, they do scouting reports as well as the Rays and all these clubs, and they know Rivera can throw, but, you know, in a close call like that, they may not be so aggressive from here on out, so the Rays might actually get something out of that in the long run.
If you don't think that that will shorten a lead and shorten the secondary lead for sure, you're crazy. It absolutely will.
Takes off on the 3-2 pitch with 2 outs, and it's fouled back. Well, you know, that can make a big difference. You know, if a guy can get, there's a difference between a lead that's 10 feet and 12 feet. You know, a guy gets out there far enough, it's really tough to throw him out no matter how quick your pitcher and how good your catcher would be. And shortening the lead is a big part of that. And
Odorizzi will do that on his own.
It's just inside for ball 4.
You know, that could be a weapon because Odorizzi, you know, good with the running game for a right-hander. Just gave up 4 stolen bases last year in 10 attempts. Had a couple of pickoffs. So he already will have the respect of base runners. And then you combine that with Rene Rivera.
Yep.
You shorten the lead, you shorten the secondary lead, and that could be the difference between going first to third.
Here's Josh Donaldson. Donaldson developed with the Oakland club. Originally in the Cubs organization. And he brings another strong run-producing bat to the Toronto lineup. Strike on the corner. He also brings the grit factor to this lineup. And I think they obviously want the production, but they're happy to have the grit.
And a grit that doesn't miss a whole lot of time. 158 games played the last 2 years.
Into the dirt. Rivera can't find it. The runners are going to advance.
Jake Odorizzi, 2 quick outs to start this inning, and then overthrew a pitch, a 3-2 pitch to Jose Bautista. Misses the Encarnacion, and then right there, another look-to-be cutter that he just overthrew to Donaldson. Right now, just a little bit overamped.
Donaldson drove in 98 runs last year for Oakland. It's a big cut, fouls it back.
You know, that's one of the reasons that Josh Donaldson brought in tremendous production, but he's always on the field. You know, in his last 2 seasons, we just mentioned the 316 games played. Brett Laurie, who's traded for him, has played in 302 games in the last 3 years. Tough keeping him on the field.
Rivera, another visit.
You want to make sure you get this right. You're up in the count, 1-2. Obviously a tight situation here with 2 runners in scoring position.
Yeah, a big pitch here because of that situation. You look at it this way, you're 1 pitch away from getting out of this.
And settling down.
Yeah, and if you can do that, that's a big lift for the Rays. If you don't get the guy here ahead 1-2, then that's another psychological mountain that you have to get over. Oh, he got it. Strike 3 call. Fastball. Donaldson took it. And the Blue Jays lead 2. We go to the 2nd inning. No score. R.A. Dickey, Tennessee right-hander. And here is Evan Longoria. Evan with a home run and 3 doubles in the first week of the season. Chops it foul, strike 1. Jennings next, and then Dykstra. Longo's managed to have some success against Dickey. See, there's the breakout. Foul ball back at third. Couple of home runs, 3 doubles for him.
And I think that last pitch he really liked. He really liked, but R.A. Dickey took enough off of it, which is what he'll do, change speeds with a knuckleball, that he just could not wait back long enough.
Pretty close. Dickey thought he had a strike.
Wow.
Right there.
That was down the middle.
Take a look at this. Pretty good, didn't it? And there's a cut and a miss. 3 consecutive strikeouts for Dickey.
Now, part of the reason that Kevin Cash was talking about swinging earlier in the count if you get a pitch to hit, and Evan Longoria did that, he just fouled him off. Because once you get to 2 strikes, are you going to get the hard knuckleball, softer one, more movement, more drop, tough to gauge and tough to protect.
There's Desmond taking a pitch too high. You know, this is a pretty good park to hit in, and Desmond in his career has had pretty good numbers here. He hit 7 home runs in this ballpark. It is up in the count, 3-0.
Well, this is where R.A. Dickey may try to sneak you a fastball. And if I'm Desmond Jennings, that's what I'm going to sit on. Get another knuckleball, well, who cares?
And ball 4. Jennings heads to first. Let's check in with Todd Callis. Todd, what have you got for us?
Well, Dwayne, as Alan Dykstra strides to the plate, he has a little different look to him tonight, and it's not from running into any trouble here in Toronto. This is what happened. It's a self-inflicted wound. First pitch of BP today. He bunts one into his own eye, and it swelled up a little bit, that left eye. In 7 minor league seasons and 2,700 plate appearances, he has 1 successful sacrifice. I don't think we'll see another one for a while, guys.
Yeah, he just about did more than practice sacrificing there.
That's a terrible way to start off BP. You're getting your bunts down and you bunt it off your own dome.
Yeah. Lifts a fly ball right center. Bautista calling it. 2 gone.
And the Rays need no other injuries to add to the list. Especially as one that would have been as freaky as that.
Yep. All the pitching injuries. Then Loney. Nick Franklin already out. 2 gone. Jennings at first for Rene Rivera. There's the list, and boy, it's amazing. You got 4 starting pitchers, a closer, your DH, your first baseman, and an infielder who figured to play a lot. I don't know the count to Rivera. I mean, you think about that. Here you are, Kevin Cash. You've never managed before. You're the youngest manager going. You're 37. You start the year, and half your team's on the DL. What a way to start a managing career. And he has charted a steady course despite all of that to this point. So he's being tested. You talk about jumping right into the fire.
Oh, yeah. That's what drew the Rays to him.
Now Rivera hit by the knuckleball. So 2 men on with 2 men out for the Rays. And Kevin Kiermaier will be up.
Well, here it is, a knuckleball that just takes off, stays up, and stays in. No major league hitter likes to get hit by a pitch, but if you are, knuckleball, not a bad choice.
And how about Rivera? You know, he started the year 0 for 17. Now he's been on base in each of his last 4 plate appearances with 3 hits and then hit by a pitch. Trying to make up ground in a hurry. Now Kevin Kiermaier. one.
Well, the Rays are certainly not cutting down on their swings at all here against R.A. Dickey, and Kevin Kiermaier got a good pitch up over the plate first pitch, and he took a rip.
That's refreshing to see this lineup be the way it's been. Aggressive, and they still have worked some long and deep at bats.
That's when you start making it difficult on a pitcher to face you, because you know you go into a game knowing, hey, this team, they're ready to hit. Yeah. And if I leave mistakes out over the plate early, they're going to take a rip. And oh, by the way, they're not afraid to work 7, 8, 9 pitch at bats either.
Yeah.
That's a tough combo to deal with.
Put away, 1 ball, 2 strikes. 7 extra base hits. Ben Zobrist for Oakland has 5. How about that? Those 2 guys topping the list early. It's popped up. Headed toward the stands. Martin over, but he'll run out of room into the first row just behind the Toronto dugout. You know, that approach of hitters, why be the hunted up there? If you've got a lineup of guys who can give you good at bats and be aggressive at the same time, now the pitcher starts to feel as if he might be the hunted.
Well, yeah, he knows I just can't go out there and get strike 1. You know, my get me over curveball, strike 1. I've got to go out and make a pitch. Got to make a pitch from the first of the at bat, or they'll take advantage. It makes it more difficult.
The pitch is low, and into third base goes Jennings. Jennings timed him up on a couple of pitches prior. Rivera is still at first as Jennings picks up his 2nd steal of the year.
And the 2nd stolen base that R.A. Dickey has given up this year. Jacoby Ellsbury got him in his first start, and the reason that that's newsworthy is R.A. Dickey only gave up 3 stolen bases in 215 2/3 innings last year. He is not easy to run up.
He's been that way his entire career. It seems to just get better with age. Full count on Kiermaier.
And this is why that's a great move by Jennings. You say, well, 2nd to 3rd. You got a knuckleballer on the mound. Russell Martin has not caught him very much. 1 knuckleball takes off on Martin, and there's a run.
High fly ball. Back into right center field. That ball's got some carry, but just to the track. And Pompey makes the catch. Kiermaier gave it a ride. And the Rays lead 2. No score. Season of Rays baseball is here. You can purchase your 2015 ticket plan to get the best seat locations. Choose from a variety of plans and don't miss a minute of the fun with Rays baseball For ticket plan information, visit RaysBaseball.com or call 888-FAN-RAYS. Justin Smoke, the first baseman, leads it off and lifts a high fly. Short center, Kiermaier looking for it there for a moment against the roof, but he finds it and makes the catch. One pitch, one out. You'd love to see Odorizzi with an abbreviated second inning to get through this with just a few pitches, because he made 24 pitches in the first inning. Here's Russell Martin. Martin 1 for 16 to start the year. 1-0.
That was something that plagued Jake Odorizzi last year. We talk about his desire to get deeper into games. It's not for a lack of pitches. It was just last year he averaged 18 pitches an inning over the course of 31 starts. So when we, bring up the fact that he averaged just 5 1/3 innings a start, or just over that, that's almost 100 pitches.
And he averaged 14 pitches, I think 14.1 against Baltimore. That's where he wants to be.
Yeah, and that may not be sustainable, but certainly in that 15 to 16 range, if he continues to attack the zone like he did in that start.
Up the middle, but Beckham shading him up there on the shortstop side of the bag, and that little shift takes care of him. We mentioned the infield earlier. This is new turf, and it is extremely slow. In fact, on ground balls through the infield, the Rays have alerted their defenders, go get the ball, because it may not get to the outfield. So you have to be aware of how slow this new turf is playing right now. You think they'll try to adjust that at some point. But during batting practice, they're doing the normal things with new turf, trying to figure out where a ground ball up the third or first base lines, how it might roll. And the other thing, the bigger thing they found, is how slow it is.
Well, and any time you have that new turf that they're putting in nowadays, it always starts off. So that's why they'll roll it. Just constantly have rollers out there rolling it, trying to beat it down and make it play a little bit more fair.
Beckham again with this one, and it's a 1-2-3 inning. Pilar out of there. We go to the third. No score. In this game and all season long, Tires Plus will donate $100 to the Pediatric Cancer Foundation for every Tampa Bay Rays home run televised on Sun Sports. Tim Beckham all set to lead off. getting his second start of the year at second base. De Jesus next, and then Souza. There's ball one. Beckham turning in some great at bats in that Miami series. Ground ball to third. Donaldson is there and makes the play.
Well, Josh Donaldson playing even with the bag there. We talked about the turf last half inning being slow, and he can kind of kill two birds there with one stone. Play in case Beckham decides to lay one down and not be worried if he spins on one. Very good defender down to third base.
Yeah, this infield is playing like Wrigley Field played when Fergie Jenkins pitched up there and won 20 games 6 years in a row with a sinker. Just make that grass as thick as possible, and that's about how slow this infield is. There's a strike to De Jesus. Speaking of grass, by the way, there's serious discussion here in Toronto, and this is brand new turf. Serious discussion by 2018 of having natural surface here, grass, at Rogers Center. Pitch popped up. It's Travis, the second baseman. 2 outs.
Well, you know, the old AstroTurf was awful. The new field turf and the different styles and different brands of that, much better. But nothing beats natural grass. That'd be great if they could pull that off.
Steven Souza Jr. Well, there's some serious talk about that. We'll see. Ball one upstairs.
Now this is a guy right here the Rays would like to get going. Steven Souza Jr. his first week as an everyday player in the big leagues.
And the strike gets 1-1. You know, you never know how these things are going to work out. But I think it's interesting when you look at Donaldson. You know, he was a little bit of a late bloomer, but when he bloomed, boy, he did in a big way. And he had some of the same kind of numbers that Souza had in the minor leagues. And then he got to be 26, 27, and things really started to come together for him. And he's become just a great run producer and an outstanding third baseman as well. So there are cases where a guy about that time of his career makes that big move, and the Rays are hoping that applies with Souza Jr.
Well, and he said, you know, this first week I've been trying to do too much. I've been trying to, you know, prove my worth and show that I do belong here and to be an everyday player. He's like, I need to go back to and do the things, execute the swing, shorten the swing, the things that got me here.
Chop toward the middle. Throw to first. One hopper safe at first. Travis had to move to his right and bounced it in, and Souza with his speed safe at first.
And Travis took a little bit too much time at the end. He did have to range to his right up the middle, but then he gets a little lax on the throw here, then realizes he's got to rush it, and it was too late then. Steven Souza Jr. runs very well. 26 stolen bases last year in AAA. And that hustle right there earns him a base hit.
Boy, that's the one element that he has, that if he could get his offensive game going, that speed has a chance to keep him out of those prolonged stretches where sometimes a hitter finds himself struggling for a hit, because he's fast enough to pick up an infield hit or two in the middle of a stretch like that. 1-0 the count to Cabrera. Rays had 2 men on in the second, left him there. Souza right out of the box.
Not a lot of wasted movement at all.
Time granted here. Cabrera, one of 3 strikeouts posted by Dickey in the early part of this game. 2-1. A 3-1 count on Asdrubal Cabrera. Evan Longoria on deck. Souza back in. As we discussed earlier, you cannot go to sleep with Dickey on the mound.
No, he's got a great pickoff move. He's quick to home plate, not easy to run on. And Souza's lead getting aggressive.
That's ball 4. And the Rays will put 2 men aboard and get Evan Longoria to the plate.
Well, it all started with the hustle of Souza on a chopper up the middle that could have very easily ended the inning. He beats it out. Cabrera gets a walk, and now the guy that you're going to count on to carry your offense as far as run production goes gets his opportunity.
That's a great point, because you never know where that great hustle is going to lead you, and it's led the Rays to another scoring opportunity. Dickey looking back at Souza, who decided to expand his lead. Travis, the second baseman, playing deep.
But you remember, this is where Desmond Jennings was able to pick up a stolen base. Same scenario, 2 outs, runners on first and second.
Now Travis breaking to the bag, and Souza got back in, but a balk has been called. Jeff Nelson has called the balk on Dickey. That's going to advance both runners. They'll both be in scoring position.
Well, R.A. Dickey's a guy that controls the running game, does a great job at it, but the Rays have been active out there, messing around with him. The big lead there by Souza, and he's got to step off the rubber. You can step off and turn that way, but it's got to be a clear step behind the rubber before you deliver the ball to second and base. And it almost looked like R.A. Dickey right there just spun while he was on the rubber, didn't clearly step off the back, and that's why the balk was called.
Lance Diaz getting in on the conversation.
Well, you take a look right here. This foot. No, that's not. That foot's got to step back. And it's. You can see why the balk was called. Was that enough? The movement was subtle at best.
So the Rays get both their men now moving into scoring position. And here's Evan Longoria. Evan lifts a fly ball back to right center field. This one called for by Bautista. And the Rays, for the second straight inning, leave 2 men on base. Bottom of the third coming, scoreless. our Toyota trends. Jake Odorizzi, 2 starts against the Blue Jays at home last year, and he pitched well. Got a win in July and a no decision in September. And he faces Devon Travis, the number 9 hitter, the second baseman, leading off the home half of the third. He takes a strike. Blue Jays like Travis. They got him from the Detroit Tigers system in the deal involving the outfielder Anthony Gose. Chop to shortstop. Cabrera's throw is in time. Travis out of Florida State and went to high school at Palm Beach Central. And the Blue Jays looking for a little help at second base. He has a great opportunity here.
Well, and you know, talking with Pat Tabler, the analyst for the Blue Jays, he said, listen, this kid plays a good, tough second base, not afraid to stand in there, turn the double play. And he was remarking, when was the last time that the Blue Jays had a second baseman that would do that? So he's going to get every opportunity.
Uh-oh, what do we have here? Something in Cabrera's eye, so we hope that it's just minor. It appears to be that way.
Well, you know, with the turf like this, it's the bottom of it is sprinkled with ground up tires, like a small little rubber pellets. And those things, you make a diving catch on this kind of turf, you'll find those for the next couple of days in your clothes. So maybe that's what happened. I'm digging something out of there. Yeah, see all that rubber coming up. You get one of those bounce right into the eye. It's uncomfortable.
We all know how that could be, and you hope that it clears itself up here quickly.
Yeah, seeing the ball at this level is pretty important. I'll give him that.
Yeah. Yeah, he's good. Well, we think he's good. There you go. There's one out. We'll swing back around to the top of the Toronto order and Jose Reyes. One ball, no strikes. Popped up. Beckham makes the call, and he's got it. Two gone. It's going to be Dalton Pompey. Pompey out short the first, his first time around. Another Canadian, an Ontario native. One and one. Went to school at Mississauga.
His first home run of the season in the ball game yesterday. Actually, the Blue Jays had a number of home runs in that ball game against the Orioles and winning. They come home.
And to first. Dykstra's got it unassisted. 1, 2, 3. Go the Blue Jays. Desmond Jennings coming in to lead off the fourth. We have no score. Go behind the scenes on social media with Sun Sports and your favorite Rays broadcast team all season long on Instagram and Twitter at Sun Sports Rays. Here's Desmond Jennings. 1-0. Jennings, Dykstra, and Rivera. Liner into left, going to be in for a base hit. So Jennings is aboard for the second time. And for the second time in this game, we'll check in with Todd Kalas. Todd?
Dwayne, thank you. You know, it was 11 years ago today that today's manager for the Rays, Kevin Cash, batted number 9 in the Blue Jays lineup for Carlos Tosca. And 11 years ago today, Kevin Cash had 4 hits, including 3 doubles. In our Geico Great Moments, you'll see not only did he have the 3 doubles, he had 2 runs batted in. Also, his 4th hit was an infield hit. Russell Martin has something to shoot for, guys. No Toronto Blue Jays catcher before or after that day has had 4 hits, including 3 doubles. Kevin Cash pretty much downplayed it like he usually does about his accomplishments before the game. But that was at the old Comerica Park back when the fences were deep. He could have had 2 or 3 home runs that day if the fences were moved in after the first year or 2. Guys, back to you.
Yeah, and when you put the infield hit into that mix, that might be a record that would be safe for a long time for catchers anywhere. Dykstra takes a rip, fouling it back. It's 1-2. Yeah, it is interesting with Kevin Cash. He low-keys everything about himself. And in a way, that's so refreshing. I mean, he wants to take care of business. He's bright and a tireless worker, and really doesn't want much of the limelight at all. There's a base hit shot through the left side for Dykstra, and the Rays have put the first 2 men on. That's the first big league hit for Alan Dykstra, and it comes off R.A. Dickey. So they'll take care of that baseball and save it for Allen.
Well, this ball was moving away, stayed up and away. Look at Alan Dykstra, just shorten the stroke a little bit and shoot that ball the other way. Nice job in picking up that first hit. And the Rays have something working here. First and second, nobody out.
2 men aboard for the 3rd consecutive inning. This time, the first 2 hitters have reached. Rene Rivera looks at a strike. Rivera walked in the second. Actually, he was hit by a pitch in the second inning to keep his little streak of reaching base in 4 plate appearances. Pitch disappeared on him.
They started right down the middle of the plate and all of a sudden dove down and away. Almost looked like a nasty slider. That's the unpredictability of the pitch.
Jennings starts to head toward third, draws a turn by Dickey, back in at second.
I've never seen a team push R.A. Dickey like this on the base paths. He usually has the running game shut down almost before the game starts. But the Rays have been very aggressive with him on the base paths.
And there's Jennings again, expanding that lead and drawing the attention of Dickey.
Yeah, they obviously have a real good idea that this is something that, if nothing else, it forces R.A. Dickey to think about something besides making a pitch.
1-2 on Rivera. Well, that's part of being aggressive. And that's what we've seen out of the Rays that indicates that this could be a fun team to watch. Popper carries into short center for Pompey. One away.
You know, this Rays team is not going to be able to sit back and just pop home run after home run, okay? And no one's going to hand you runs. You're going to have to go and take them. And so I think that over the course of the season, you're going to see the Rays being very aggressive in a lot of not so much non-traditional ways, but in ways that they maybe haven't taken full advantage of the last couple of years. get back to running more. They've got more threats to run, maybe a hit and run, more aggressive at the plate.
Yeah, and I don't know that this is necessarily true, but it's just an early observation and opinion. It seems to me, people talk about the evolution of metrics in baseball. And of course, the Rays have embraced that from the very beginning of this whole turnaround in the franchise. But this seems to be a melting of the metrics and some good, aggressive, traditional baseball. Kiermaier takes the pitch low, 1-0.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with that observation, because the Rays are never going to turn away from the advanced metrics.
Yeah,
but
and why?
They're there for a reason. They work for a reason. But at the same time, some of that good old-fashioned baseball aggressiveness can work in concert with the with the metrics, and that's what we're seeing.
And we talked about the Rays, earlier when they were more athletic and had greater speed, that they played more of a National League brand of baseball. And as the game itself has changed, getting away from sitting back waiting for that home run, because you had so many of those guys who were pumped up and hitting home runs. The Rays sort of got a head start on that when they turned the corner and went to the World Series in '08. But now this team is a little, and especially when it's healthy, this team is a little more athletic and aggressive than they've been over the last couple of years. There goes Jennings, and he stops the pitch, called a strike as it popped away from Martin. Here's the thing, and you mentioned it, it's important for Jennings to get to third because of the knuckleball out there. And in the first game, when Martin caught Dickey, there were no wild pitches or pass balls because there's nobody on base, but they did have 2 or 3 pitches that got away. So you never know.
Yeah.
You got to get that guy to third if you can.
Yep. Yeah, and if you can get him to third now, with less than 2 outs, there's another way to score. You could drive him in. You could, the pitch goes awry. Any way to enhance your ability or give your team more chances to score, you want to take full advantage. And you see out there Desmond Jennings getting a lot of attention from R.A. Dickey, and deservedly so.
Reaching for that one, darting away from him.
R.A. Dickey tonight with a lot of the hard knuckleballs. 77, 78 mile-an-hour range. There's one right there, and that gets Kevin Kiermaier reaching.
Here's Tim Beckham. Close. Yeah, it stayed up there. 1-0. Jennings single, Dykstra single, first and second to start the inning. Now they're still on board at first and second with 2 gone. Two balls, no strikes. There goes Jennings. Pitch inside, and Jennings will walk in with no throw. Jennings gets over there. The count is 3-0 on Beckham.
And I love the fact that Desmond Jennings took this bag, but boy, you'd like to see him do that earlier than 2 outs.
Ball 4. That will load the bases. Dykstra pushed up to second. Rays have had a lot of base runners. They left 2 aboard in the second, left 2 men on in the third, and they have them loaded with 2 outs in the fourth. And David DeJesus stepping in. DeJesus makes it a strike.
Well, this is where you start to ask yourself, off of what you said, how many more opportunities are you going to get? At some point, you've got to cash in if you want to win this game.
Now 1-1.
And you know, you like to say, well, like David DeJesus has had a couple of big hits and he's got a good approach right now. I don't know how much that means going up against a knuckleball. You're hoping one floats into the barrel of his bat.
It's anybody's guess, really. Now 2 balls and a strike.
Now you know that R.A. Dickey does not want to get to 3-1 with the bases loaded and the unpredictable nature of the knuckleball. So David DeJesus gets something out over the plate here.
And he takes ball 3. Well, here we go. DeJesus is 1 of 19 against Dickey. So if the odds have anything to do with it, he's due for something good here. We'll see what happens. 3-1. And a strike. Full count. Was it? Scoreless in the 4th.
Dickey makes that spin. He knows everybody's off and running here. 3-2, 2 out.
And that's ball 4. Going to force home a run. The Rays finally get a run after all these threats. Jennings crosses the plate on the bases loaded walk drawn by David DeJesus. And the Rays make it 1-0. You know, and here's a situation with David walking and getting Steven Souza Jr. to the plate. We saw what the difference his speed can make. Ball 1 inside. Ground ball. Foul past Charlie Montoyo. 1-1. Well, the Rays now, with his bases loaded walk drawn by DeJesus, have 5 bases loaded walks already this year.
It's their best play.
1-2. Singles, 2 walks in the inning, a run. And Dickey wanted the appeal at first. Nothing doing, and it's a 2-2 count.
Oh, he saw the flinch from Souza. Ball's up and in. You see that flinch, but nowhere near going.
That's upstairs. Full count.
You know, I'll tell you what, these Rays hitters have had a nice approach as far as we always talk about with the knuckleballer, see it high, let it fly. They've taken a number of balls that were up, 4 balls. Tough to lay off those typically.
And ball 4. So the second bases loaded walk forces Dykstra across. And the Rays make it a 2-0 game.
All right, Dickey really fighting himself here. Just cannot get that knuckleball controlled out over the plate when he needs it. And you got to give credit to the Rays hitters. Now, that was an easy take by Souza. That ball was way up, but there have been a number of close takes by both Souza and DeJesus that have led to these 2 runs.
Well, a knuckleball pitcher can give a manager a lot of innings and keep you in games, give you a chance to win. But this is the tough part of being a manager with a knuckleballer out there.
What do you say to him? Nothing.
Yeah.
You just hope that, R.A. Dickey, a lot of innings in the big leagues, a lot of experience, can work his way through it.
William Hendricks up in the bullpen. Cabrera goes after the first pitch, lifting a fly ball to center. Pompey makes the catch, and the Rays get 2. We go to the bottom of the 4th. 2-0 Tampa Bay. And boy, how about this list for game changers? Since 2010, Jose Bautista's hit 188 home runs, heading the list of Cabrera, Pujols, Stanton, and Encarnacion.
Little Blue Jay sandwich.
And it's going to be Bautista to lead off. He takes a strike on the outer part of the plate.
You don't mind that. You know you're going to have to face him. Might as well face him with nobody on base.
1-1. Line drive caught by Longoria. Hot shot, and Evans shaded toward the line. There to make the grab.
You know, watching this on TV, you can't do it justice. You just can't appreciate how hard the ball is hit by Bautista and how quickly it's all over Evan Longoria, and he still makes the play and makes it look easy. I'd love to see a radar gun reading on that blast.
Yeah, because we talk about the game speeding up and situations speed up, but that's a real case of the game physically speeding up in a major way. A ball, no strikes to count to Encarnacion.
And you know that Evan Longoria is anticipating, but you don't know that it's coming. You get ready every pitch, and you're ready. Here you are, ready position. And all of a sudden, he turns and burns. That's why they call it the hot corner.
And that's why they also call it the ready position for these infielders. There's a whole process to get yourself into position to make that play. And you have to be ready on every pitch.
Yeah, and the ready position is not like baseball when you were growing up.
That's right.
It's not, the hand and your glove on your knees. Your hand and your glove are on your knees, you're not making that play. These guys, they kind of get into a rhythm with the pitcher. And as the pitcher's starting to deliver the ball to home plate, they're moving from one foot to the other, and the hand and the glove come down, and they're on the balls of their feet ready to go. You can see right there, look at them. Anticipation, and be ready to make that play. You never know when you're going to have to.
And you think about this play, well, it's another play in the game. That's a beautiful play. And that replay is such a great replay. And then when you see it, and we just showed it a couple of shots ago, real time.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And the beauty of TV is that it still slows it down from the real thing. That's one of the truisms that I've ever been told in this game is the further that you get away from it, the easier it looks.
Without question.
And the slower it looks.
Yeah.
And then you go out there on that field and you're like, oh my, this is fast.
Encarnacion retired on a ground ball into the shift, and now it's Josh Donaldson taking a big cut at that 2-0 pitch and bouncing it foul. 2-1. The other way to right. Souza Jr. takes care of it. 1-2-3. Go the Blue Jays. Here's a look at that shot to third. Grabbed by Longoria. 2-0 Rays through 4. To you by Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance. Visit us at geico.com or call 1-800-947-AUTO. On to the 5th inning we go. Rays opening this 4-game series at Rogers Center. It's R.A. Dickey and Jake Odorizzi. Evan Longoria leads off. Hits it on the ground to short. Reyes makes that play. 1 pitch, 1 out. Dickey made over 30 pitches in the 4th when the Rays sent 8 men to the plate, had a couple of hits and 3 walks and got 2 runs out of it. Desmond Jennings has been on twice tonight. A walk and a single, a run scored. And he starts this at bat by taking ball 1 too high. One and one. Hot shot, that's going to be foul down the left field side. Dickey faced the Rays 4 times last year. It was 2-2, and the Rays got him for 6 earned runs opening day at Tropicana Field last year. And walks turned out to be a big part of that. He strikes out Jennings chasing the knuckleball. Rays got him for 6 earnings, and he walked 6 in that outing. He's walked 6 in this game. Actually, he's walked 5 and has hit a man. So giving up 6 base runners. Virtue of the walk and a hit batter. 1-0 the count on Dykstra. Alan Dykstra picking up his first big league hit. His last time up, and scored his first big league run. Dykstra out of the San Diego area. Drafted by the Padres, played in their minor league system. Played AAA for the Mets system last year. 2-2.
Well, stays up. Comes in a little bit at the end.
There you go. He checks, says Laz Diaz.
That's one of those examples we were talking about on that pitch that's up that the Rays have been able to lay off of, recognizing above the zone or just off the plate. And he'll get another one here.
Liner into right. Bautista makes the catch, and the Rays are up and down 1-2-3 for the first time since the first inning. 2-0 Tampa Bay. Gather your friends, make it a girls' night out at the ballpark Friday, April 17th when the Rays meet the Yankees. And women receive a Rays crossbody bag while supplies last. For tickets, visit RaysBaseball.com or call 888-FAN-RAYS. Justin Smoke over from the Seattle Mariners leads it off. A ball, no strikes. Russell Martin next, and then Kevin Pillar. Did he go? That's a strike, says plate umpire Chris Guccione. Shift is on for Smoke. Beckham is in shallow right, and with the count now 1-2. Longoria goes to the first base side of second.
It's my favorite part of the shift is when they actually move different players in and out depending on the count.
Back off the mound. And Cabrera's there. Odorizzi just about had the hop foot on that one.
Well, Justin Smoke, another new face here in Toronto, and we know that he can hit the ball hard. Goes right back up the middle. Jake Odorizzi waving off any help right at you. Just glances off him. You see that ball, a slight change of direction. But Odorizzi's fine.
A kick save.
Yep, got the inside of that right calf. Somewhere in that right leg, glancing blow.
And he gets an assist.
That's right.
Here's Russell Martin. Fouling it back, strike one.
Well, Jake, after those 2 walks in the first inning, has really settled in the same type of approach and success that he had against the Orioles. They're really attacking the zone.
Ground ball, left side. That takes care of Martin. Cabrera throws out the Toronto catcher.
And this is where Jake Odorizzi, he'll get his strikeouts. He was in the top 10 last year in strikeouts per 9 innings at 9.32. But this approach of pounding the zone early, putting hitters on the defensive, will also lead to early in the count outs, which is what we're seeing him start to rack up now.
And let me tell you this. He has 14 outs he's recorded, 8 ground ball outs. And he's a fly ball guy.
You were very excited with that. I mean, when you said, let me tell you this, I listened. You went all E.F. Hutton on me.
Well, I think it's a great addition to his game. Looper short, right, and that ball's going to get by Souza. Kiermaier over to back it up. Pilar's going to go to second. Souza tried to make the shoestring catch. And it's 2 bases for Pilar.
Well, and you wonder why Steven Souza Jr. sold out his body like that. It was because the Toronto Blue Jays had yet to have a base hit, and so he's trying to preserve that for Jake Odorizzi, and he sells out and ends up about a foot short.
So a double for Pilar. Blue Jays have a man in scoring position for the first time since the first inning. Here's Devon Travis. 1 ball, no strikes. Jake had retired 12 in a row before giving up that hit. Liner into right for a base hit. Souza up with it. Throw comes toward the plate. It will not be in time. And it's 2-1.
Well, that's how quickly it can happen. Souza trying to make that play. Allows Pilar to get to second base, and then Travis gets a ball up, stays inside it, punches it out into right field, and the Blue Jays have the first run.
Blue Jays take advantage of this 2-out opportunity. Travis driving in his 4th run of the year. Here's the top of the order, Jose Reyes. Upstairs. Reyes hit a fly ball to left, popped to second. Reyes had gotten off to a fast start. And a foul ball. Arias led Toronto in total hits last year. 175 hits.
He's got such a quick bat, quick hands. He can get out around the baseball, hit it up the line, he'll slap the ball the other way. You definitely want to keep him off the base paths because he's another guy that you've got to pay attention to.
And a strike. 1-2.
Boy, big swing. There's that swing, a borderline pitch and a 1-1 count. Goes Jake Odorizzi's way, and now that opens up the door for how he can close Reyes out. He can go to anything. Elevate the heater. He can go with the split change.
Keep an eye on Travis at first. Reyes stays alive, bouncing it out in front of Luis Rivera, the Blue Jays third base coach. Odorizzi allowing a run on 2 hits now. He walked 2 in the first. Back-to-back hits here in the 5th. And he got him. A strikeout of Reyes. Rays close out the 5th, holding a 2-1 lead. Hit in the 6th, holding a 1-run lead. Don't want to miss the American League East showdown when the Rays take on the Yankees. That'll be Saturday, April 18th. You'll bend over backwards for an Alex Cobb Gumby, available for all fans while supplies last. For tickets, call 888-FAN-RAYS or visit RaysBaseball.com. Rays up. Rene Rivera leading off the 6th. A big cut and the miss. Rivera hit by a pitch in the 2nd and a fly ball to center his last time up. One. Shortstop. Reyes takes care of Rivera. Kevin Kiermaier on his way to the plate. Kevin, a good pitch and drove it to the warning track and center back in the 2nd inning. And in the 4th, when the Rays scored their 2 runs, he struck out, and a couple of pitches before he struck out, he had a really good pitch to hit and fouled it back. Lifts this one into center. Pompey puts it away.
The thing I think that we all love about Kevin Kiermaier, about how hard he plays the game, the way that he busts it out of the box, always looking for an extra base, single to a double, double to a triple. But how about how productive he's been? And he's been bouncing all over this Rays lineup. Yep. We've seen him hitting in the 9-hole. Tonight he's in the 8th. We've seen him hit leadoff. He's just a baseball player. He doesn't care. My name's in the lineup. Good. I don't care where. I'll make sure that I'm ready and go out there and get the job done. I mean, I'm sure he'd love to and would prefer to be in one spot. But if he's not going to let it bother him.
Yeah, he doesn't take anything for granted. He was not a top round draft pick. He got noticed because the scout was watching somebody else play in an amateur game, and he's made the most of his opportunities. He just plays hard as anybody in the game. 2 strikes on Beckham. Enough of that one to stay alive. Rays got 2 in the 4th, and the Blue Jays got a run in the 5th. Beckham battling the veteran knuckleballer. Fouls another one back. We go to the bottom of the 6th. 2-1. In the 4th, David DeJesus drew a bases loaded walk, and Steven Souza Jr. likewise to make it 2-0. Then with 2 outs in the 5th, the Pilar double and the base hit to right field by Devon Travis. There's the double, and Travis singled him home. Pompey down to bunt that pitch, and it dropped low.
Big out here. This is something that Jake Odorizzi's done a really good job of last year, keeping the leadoff runner of an inning off base. Just a .263 on base percentage, and it becomes paramount. It is in any inning, let alone this one, when you know who's coming up next, followed by that other guy.
and leadoff hitters.
Right.
That's it. 1-2.
But, you know, you go back to that number, the on base of 263 to lead off an inning. When you're able to retire that leadoff right, you give yourself such a great chance of getting out of that inning unscathed, getting into a nice rhythm, a nice roll to be able to finish that inning off instead of immediately having to go to the stretch.
Yep.
Higher leverage pitches. You know, if it's a base stealer, you got to start worrying about that. The degree of difficulty goes up immensely.
Two balls, 2 strikes. He got him right by him. Fastball to strike him out to lead off this inning. Here is Jose Bautista. The hit speed on that liner he hit in the 4th, 99.4.
Get the head out and get ready. And there's that ready position that Evan got himself into to be able to make that play.
Bautista didn't like the call on that pitch.
Jose Bautista not afraid to let umpires know when a call goes against him. He can be very demonstrative.
Two.
Well, you can see right there, still talking. He's not happy about that first call. Now he finds himself down 0-2 in the count.
He walked into first, hit the line drive that we just saw in the 4th.
Ball out on the field. Eagle Eye Guccione picked it up.
Too low. Bautista not offering. Odorizzi in his 2nd start. He pitched 6 2/3 against the Orioles, 94 pitches in that game. He had 67 pitches through 5 tonight.
And a different mix tonight. You know, the last start against the Orioles, we highlighted the fact that 71 of the 94 pitches were fastball split change. A lot of fastballs tonight, a lot of cutters tonight. Split changeups take a little bit of a back seat. Been more judicious about when he introduces that pitch. There's like another cutter right there.
And just off the plate. 2-2.
Well, that's nice when you can put together a game plan and have a floating game plan where your secondary pitches will kind of just depends on the lineup and what feels good that night.
Well, how about this episode with O'Day and Bautista over in Baltimore? Bautista had a lot of luck, a lot of success against him, and bounces his way down to first after coming back and hitting that one into the seats against O'Day.
Yeah, and O'Day, I mean, and that was weird too, because it was a 2-1 count, 2-1 fastball over his back, and the last laugh was had by Bautista.
Ooh, close again. Odorizzi looking for that call on a fastball.
And watch Jake Odorizzi after he delivers this pitch. He starts to walk as he's going to turn back around the mound and get that ball back from third base. He assumed that was a strike.
And now he walks Bautista.
And Bautista has the little bat flip on top of it. He took a changeup down in the dirt. Here's the previous pitch. Watch the fastball. Watch Jake's reaction. He thinks that's strike 3. He's going to turn around and wait for the ball. Then he turns back like, what? Ends up losing him.
And now base runner with one out in the sixth, and the designated hitter, Edwin Encarnacion. He has walked and grounded to Beckham. First pitch, fastball strike. Foul the other way, out of play. Odorizzi dealing with the middle of this dangerous lineup. Third time through. Never gets easier. Rays with 2 runs, 3 hits. The Blue Jays 1 run on 2 hits. Off the plate, cut it away. Is short, out at second. Cabrera had trouble finding the handle on that one. Rays with the shift on, and so they only get 1 instead of 2.
Yep, and that was as routine as it was going to get for a double play with the shift on, because Encarnacion smoked that ball to Cabrera. It gets to him so quick. Now it's just a matter of making 2 throws. And as you see right there, as he goes to pull it out of the glove and flip it to Beckham, it falls to the turf. And that, in turn, throws off the whole timing of the play.
Now Josh Donaldson gets a chance to hit in the inning. And the pitch is away. Well, no error, but a missed opportunity to get out of the inning on a double play. 2 balls, no strikes. Jake did not pitch against the Blue Jays here last year. He did pitch against them here in 2013. Pitched 5 innings. And he promptly falls behind Donaldson, 3-0. Smoke on deck, and a line drive caught by Beckham, who had him shifted to the shortstop side of second, and that retires the side. Broke his bat. A man left, and we head into the 7th inning. It's 2-1 Tampa Bay. do 6 onto the 7th, and that's going to be it for R.A. Dickey tonight. 40-year-old knuckleballer goes 6 innings. Getting the home opening nod. 102 pitches.
Well, he's put his team in a position to win this game, giving up just the 2 earned runs in 6 innings, but the 5 walks and the couple with the bases loaded. And you know that he would love to have those back. The Rays able to be patient enough with him in those situations, and that's given him the 2 runs. Tough way
and
to give him up.
Roberto Osuna is the new pitcher. He just turned 20 the first week of February. And he has a big arm. First pitch, 96 miles per hour, is ball 1 to David DeJesus.
And it's an easy upper 90s fastball.
Yep.
Smooth delivery.
Fly ball back into left. Pilar backing up as it carries to the track. And he makes the catch. Now Osuna out of Cuba, born in Cuba, lives in Mexico, and he had Tommy John surgery and just came back last year. He was in the minor leagues in the Gulf Coast League and at Dunedin in the Florida State League. Pitched in 8 games all of last year, 23 innings, coming back from Tommy John surgery. And now he's working out of the bullpen. They have a couple of youngsters out there with big time arms. And we're seeing Osuna first. 1 ball, 1 strike.
Velocity, there's no question about it. The last 5-10 years has gone up on average. In fact, last year the average fastball in Major League Baseball was 92.1, the highest it's ever been.
Souza lifting a fly ball to right. Bautista grabs that.
And it's just seemingly a never-ending, line of pitchers coming out of bullpens that, they start at 95.
Yep.
Work their way up to 100.
It's amazing. We talk about this all the time. I remember back, it doesn't seem all that long ago, might be longer than I really think, but when scouts and organizations were looking for guys who could throw over 90.
Yeah.
Strike 1 to Cabrera. They were lamenting the fact they couldn't find enough guys who could throw 90 or 91, 92.
You're a soft tosser if you throw 90, 91 now.
Yeah. I actually had a scout tell me a year ago he had 50 or 60 guys he could sign right now that threw 92, 93. They don't even consider them. Really? I mean, somebody in that group has to be good enough.
Can you locate?
Can you locate? 2 and 1. I mean, that's an amazing statement. I couldn't believe it. They just didn't have time to check all those guys out. He went to the other high velocity guys. Kept tabs on them. Boy, I might hire another scout and have him go look at.
I was going to say, there's some hidden gems in that 92, 93.
3-1 the count.
But there is no question that you see high octane, and that is the trend in bullpens. Give you a lot of different looks and a lot of big time velocity coming out of the pen. In what you're trying to do is shorten the game.
Lifted into center field. Pompey cutting across is there, and the Rays are out in the 7th. 2-1 Tampa Bay.
leading the Blue Jays 2-1. The 10th commissioner of baseball, Rob Manfred, was in the house today, and before the game, he addressed the Rays stadium situation.
I talked to Stu about the most recent developments. I think that he remains amazingly committed to the idea of trying to make Tampa work. He is realistic about the fact that the timeline probably shifted a little bit, and as I've said before, I think the key for Major League Baseball is to follow the lead of the local ownership. They have the best feel for what's going on in that local community, what the timing can be, what can be accomplished, and I'm very comfortable following Stu's lead on this one.
Great to see the commissioner again, guys. He is trying to see all the teams in the early months of his stewardship in Major League Baseball. Back to you.
He has done an amazing job of reaching out to all the clubs and all the markets and the fans since assuming the role of commissioner. I don't know that I've seen one who's been more engaging than this new commissioner has been. 1-2 pitch by Spoke down to first, and Dykstra makes the play unassisted.
Even with the players, meeting with the players, meeting with the Rays in spring training, taking questions from the players. He's very open and forthright with his answers. He's not guarded, and he's not, just kind of behind the scenes. He's been out in front of all of this stuff. All the issues in the game, all of the initiatives that he wants to bring to the game. And he's just been a breath of fresh air. He really is. Very engaging, approachable, easy to talk to. And he's got a lot of real good ideas.
Russell Martin. Pitch is a strike to him. You wonder these days, especially in almost any walk of life, what's marketing and what's real. And you really get the sense that with him, it's real. And that's what's so refreshing about it.
Well, when you get an opportunity to talk to him out of the sight lines of the camera, away from any audio equipment, he's the same guy that you see when he is on TV. Yeah. The same guy all the time. And that's what gives him that authenticity.
Yeah. 2 balls, 2 strikes the count. Lifted toward right center, and Souza, shallow, makes the play. 2 outs in the 7th. Kevin Pillar.
Well, last time for Jake Odorizzi through 6 2/3 innings, it was 94 pitches, an average of just over 14 per. Tonight, 97.
Yep. He'll take that.
Oh boy, would you ever.
And a pop up. Short right. Here comes Souza. 1, 2, 3. Go the Rays, or the Jays in the 7th. Rays come in to hit in the 8th, leading 2-1. Post-game summary brought to you by Gold and Diamond Source. 2-1 ball game here. The Rays have 3 hits. Blue Jays have 2. Jake Odorizzi 7 superb innings of 2-hit, 1-run baseball. R.A. Dickey gave the Rays 2 runs on 5 walks and 3 hits in 6 innings. So we go to the 8th. Evan Longoria will face the hard-throwing Roberto Osuna. And Longoria looks at a strike.
Well, if the fastball wasn't good enough for you, how about that nice little slider? He also has a changeup that he will feature.
And right back to the hard stuff.
Yep.
He was pitching in organized baseball in Mexico when he was 15 years old. 15.
Wow, that's young. That is young.
Yeah.
You're 15, you're barely getting into American Legion ball.
Well, he had Tommy John surgery when he was 18. Spent last year when he was 19 coming back from it. And here he is 20 in the major leagues.
At 98. 96, 98. There's that changeup at 84. Well, he has grown up quickly.
To the count to Evan. Evan lays off. The count is full. Under it, skies it toward left center. Pompey will take charge. One away. Here's what's coming up tomorrow on Rays Live. Pre-game show presented by your Gulf Coast Honda dealers. Matt Andrees will make his first start in the big leagues. Todd Callis chats with Daniel Norris, the man who lives in a van. And quite a young pitcher for the Blue Jays.
The question is it down by the river?
We're going to find out tomorrow.
Can't wait.
Todd looks him squarely in the eye and asks him the big question. 0-2. Jennings trying to get it started early on that fastball in the hole. Ball, 2 strikes. Strike called on the corner.
I don't think Desmond Jennings was a fan of this call by Chris Guccione. Fastball down and away, looked to be right at the kneecaps, right on the corner. Perfect.
What a pitch at 97.
Well, it's that realization from the hitter of there was nothing I could do with that pitch.
Alan Dykstra upstairs. Ball, 2 strikes.
Well, and if he comes back with another fastball, Alan Dykstra is going to have to dial up that swing a little bit quicker. That would had a little bit of elevation to it. It was close to Allen and just beat him on velocity. I'll try to do it again.
It's inside. 2-2. You know, we're talking about his Tommy John surgery. In 2 years in their system, he pitched only 86 innings. Spread over 2 years, and then had that Tommy John surgery. Bounces this one in, 3-2. He pitched 43 2/3 innings, and then 42 1/3 innings, and then had Tommy John surgery. Hot velocity here in this appearance tonight out of Osuna. And that is ball 4. Fans don't like it. Russell Martin did a double take, and frankly, so did Dykstra. He just wanted to check. Was that ball 4? Now we'll get a pinch runner with Dykstra drawing the walk.
Now, the only thing that Guccione could have called this was up, but you're talking about a hitter that's 6'5". I think the Rays got a break there.
Forsythe, the pinch runner. Rene Rivera looks at a fastball. Strike 1. Trying to catch up. 0-2.
You can see a couple of these swings here by the Rays between Alan Dykstra and Rene Rivera just tardy. And, you know, a lot of it has to do, obviously, with that really good velocity. But also, Osuna is so easy with his mechanics and smooth. That ball just jumps on him.
Ground ball to short. Reyes goes to second. And we go into the bottom of the 8th. It's 2-1, Tampa Bay. Outstanding work under his belt out here to start the 8th.
Yeah, and this is why the work that he has done. It's been very reminiscent of that start against the Baltimore Orioles, where he really seized the initiative. And right there, the first hit that he gave up, Steven Souza doing everything that he could to try to make that play. Couldn't do it. That led to a Blue Jay run, but that's all they have right now.
1-0 the count here. Travis cues this one foul. Devon Travis, 24-year-old second baseman.
Jake Odorizzi earning some trust too with his manager. 8th inning, 100 pitches, still out there, and still out there because he's passing the eye test.
A little tap. Who's going to get it? Rivera stood at first in time. Well, that ball headed toward the mound, and as Odorizzi came back, that ball also changed directions.
Yeah, there was a lot going on with that play. Rene Rivera coming out from behind the plate, Odorizzi coming in, and oh, by the way, there's a bat laying there that you've got to try to avoid. Little English on that ball. Now get it, stay away from the bat, and make a strong throw, pick up the out.
We have seen Rivera's ability to quickly eject himself from behind the plate. There's a ground ball by Reyes, handled by Beckham, 2 gone, and get out there on those little numbers in front of the plate. Did a nice job there of getting Travis.
Well, a lot that he brings to that position. You know, can catch and throw, can call a game. Very talented receiver of the baseball, and you're right, we've seen him up and out of that stance making plays.
Pompey, ground ball toward the middle. Cabrera there to throw him out. And it's a 1-2-3-8. On to the 9th, 2-1 Tampa Bay. The 9th inning, 2-1, Rays lead. Coming up on Rays Live, the postgame presented by Checkers. Rich and Orestes will anchor the coverage. We'll have the Kevin Cash press conference, and Todd Callis will have interviews from the clubhouse. Rays scored 2 in the 4th. Blue Jays a run in the 5th inning. Aaron Loup, the left-hander, now comes on. Pitcher number 3 for John Gibbons.
Well, Dickey for 6, Osuna an impressive 2 innings, and now you go to Aaron Loup, the tough lefty. 3 1/3 innings of work so far, a couple of strikeouts.
And with the lefty in there, Brandon Geyer will pinch hit for Kiermaier. And ball 1. And 1. Luke, 27 years old. He'll go primarily with a fastball. He'll sink that. Also got a change and a slider. There's a liner into center field, and it will be caught. Pompey Took a beat or two to get a line on that one, but made the catch.
Man, that's one of those, we saw R.A. Dickey as the knuckleballer starting this game. That ball was knuckling out to center field. Well struck by Brandon Guyer, and a difficult play for Pompey to read.
Tim Beckham reached on a walk in the 4th inning when the Rays scored both of their runs. Viewed back, 1-1. Top of the 9th. Rays missed some opportunities early, finally cashed in with their 2 runs in the 4th. They stranded 2 men in the 2nd, 2 in the 3rd. Scored 2 and left the bases loaded in the 4th, and then left a man on in the 8th.
And Luke gives you a little bit of a different look from that left side. Kind of throws across his body, slings the ball up there, and still able to get good velocity, good movement on his pitches.
And there is strike 3 call. So Beckham leaves the plate. Out number 2.
Well, the one thing we've seen from Chris Guccione tonight, he is a fan of the low strike, not so much the high. That ball not received very well by Russell Martin. Evan Longoria wondering about that pitch.
Mikey Mautuk will pinch hit now for DeJesus. Mautuk joined the team in Miami. Fastball was down. It's 1-1. Dickey, Osuna, and Luke for the Blue Jays. That's a foul ball. Martin grabbed it, but no play. Took pinch hit in the Friday game in Miami. Made a bid for a base hit on a soft liner up the middle. It was caught by D. Gordon. Lifts it up the right side. Bautista angling toward the line, stays fair, and he makes the catch. Rays out, 1-2-3. Blue Jays will have Bautista, Encarnacion, and Donaldson due up in the bottom of the 9th. sure and bring the flock out to Family Fun Day when the Rays take on the Yankees at Tropicana Field Sunday, the 19th of April. Kids 14 and under receive an Evan Longoria rubber duck while supplies last. For tickets, call 888-FAN-RAYS or visit RaysBaseball.com. Changes for the Rays. Brandon Guyer stays in to play left. Desmond Jennings will move in to center field with Kiermaier lifted for the pinch hitter. And Brad Boxberger is the new pitcher for the Rays. 8 superb innings from Jake Odorizzi. And here it's Jose Bautista. And he takes the pitch inside. A ball and no strikes.
Well, if he indeed is able to pick up this save in this ball game, he is going to earn it by virtue of where the lineup lands.
2-0. Three pitches through 8 innings for Odorizzi. Bautista comes in 2 of 2 in his career against Boxberger. And up in the count now, 2-0. Boxberger throws him a fastball for strike 1. Upstairs. 3 balls and a strike. Boxberger pitched on Saturday. Got the save for Archer in the 2-0 win in Miami. And ball 4 to Bautista. The Blue Jays, for the first time tonight, put the leadoff man on base, and it's here in the ninth in a 1-run ball game.
Well, Brad Boxberger, you know, coming in most of the time last year in a setup role. Now this year getting some opportunities to save some games. He's got a full house, the home opener here, more than 50,000 people, and you can see some of those pitches delivered to home plate. It's just a little bit too overamped, too much juice. Better find it.
Encarnacion takes the fastball, strike 1.
Brad Boxberger primarily last year a fastball changeup. We've seen the breaking ball this year, something that he worked on during spring training to have another weapon.
A little bit wide. 1-1. Big cut to miss. Encarnacion trying to end this one, and boy, what a cut on a fastball to put him down on the count 1-2.
Power on power, and look at Encarnacion lose his footing. He took such a rip.
Off the plate, fastball.
Yeah, and this becomes a big pitch here. 2-2 count. Do not want to mess around going full.
And a ground ball, foul. It went off speed. A walk to Bautista. 2-2 on Encarnacion. Upstairs. And it's a full count. Josh Donaldson is on deck. "3-2." And a foul ball, and again a big cut. This time at the off speed.
Well, we talked a little bit earlier about Encarnacion, just 82 strikeouts last year for a power hitter. That's not a bad number. He's a pretty good contact guy for a guy that has such a big swing, and he's done a nice job of fighting off a couple of changeups here in this at-bat.
3-2 again. And another foul ball. Again off speed.
You know, and the more changeups that he's seen, the better, the more comfortable he appears to be with his swing. This might be the time to try to gas him.
Boxberger has been just off with the fastball. So we'll see what happens here if he goes that way. Bautista back in. Runner goes, swing and a miss, throw down. They got him! Rivera cuts down Bautista on a strike him out, throw him out, double play. What a big play by Bautista. Trying to steal second, and Rivera guns him down.
Well, he does go up in the zone with the fastball to get Encarnacion, and how about Rene Rivera? Popping out of there, a good pitch to handle, a fastball up that takes him out of his crouch already, and then a strong, accurate throw. Boy, that was a 2-for-1 if the Rays ever needed one.
They strike him out, throw him out, double play. Rivera comes up big for the Rays. And now here's Josh Donaldson. 1-0 the count. Beckham gets the tag on him.
No question about it.
Donaldson fouls it back. 1-1. Well, how about that after the walk to Bautista and then going 3-2. Encarnacion extending it, fouling away a couple of changeups, and then that fastball with Bautista breaking. Rivera guns him down.
Well, and that's why manager John Gibbons was okay sending Bautista there, because Encarnacion, for a power guy, is one of the better contact hitters. But after lulling him to sleep with some changeups, Boxberger was able to go up with the heat and get him.
Tapper foul. Now 2-2. Well, you know, trying to wade through this part of the order. It's a major challenge. Not easily done. Fly ball. Right field toward the line. Souza to the wall. Rays win it. Souza back into the corner. Gathers in the fly ball, and the Rays are winners tonight to take game one of this 4-game series in Toronto. How about that, folks? What a finish.
I mean, enough. Boy, the walk, strike him out, throw him out, and then Josh Donaldson, who does have opposite field power and is capable, put a charge into that, but Souza runs it down right in the corner, right up against the wall, and the Rays do indeed win it. Here's the final play.
Challenge it with a fastball. This is such a great hitter's ballpark, and Souza had just enough room in the corner. Boxberger breathing a sigh of relief, thinking had him all the way. 2-1 the final. The Rays win this one. Boy, what a fun game this turned out to be. And the Rays go to 4-3 with this victory over the Toronto Blue Jays and spoil the Blue Jays home opener here. Rays got 2 in the 4th, and they make that stand up against a powerful lineup. And what a job turned in by Jake Odorizzi tonight. to pick up his second win. Todd Callis is standing by with Jake right now.
Dwayne, thanks. What a performance it was tonight on the road in front of a sold-out crowd here in Toronto. Jake, did you feel like you were on point from the start of this game? I know you walked a couple in that first inning, but then it seemed like you clicked it.
Yeah.